produced by one Rose. That's Kyrie Bowden. Coming at you, this is the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast on the Believe Network. Joining me is not Israel Troupe. He's doing grad school work. He's becoming an educational specialist. I think he wants to be an administrator at some point in his life or get that extra pay bump, whichever the case may be. You're getting Matt Perkins tonight because Georgia is squaring off against Vanderbilt in Nashville. So what better person to bring on board than the Believe in Vanderbilt host?
Former Believe in Vanderbilt host. Sticking with a scholastic metaphor. We're on sabbatical right now until the team gets better because let's face it, me and Seymour we couldn't take it anymore. Like we literally couldn't take it anymore watching this damn team. Now that doesn't mean, I'm not going to the games. So I got my season tickets, still going to all the games, still put myself through it because I'm a glutton for punishment apparently. But it was too much for me and Sea Monster to keep talking about.
That's right. Well, I'm glad to have you on. I guess this is your one outlet a year to talk Vanderbilt football and talk Georgia football. And it's just good to have you on anyway, regardless of what we're talking about. So pretty sweet hat there too, by the way.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And shout out to all of our Believe friends for hooking me up with some nice little merch here. So I think this is my second show this week. I did it with we had a nice fullback podcast over on, I'm going to plug myself while I'm here. Believe in Badgers. I'm a Badger. We had with my co-host Matt Bernstein, the Hebrew Hammer, one of the greatest fullbacks in Wisconsin history. We had Chris Presley, who's former Badger fullback, played for the Bengals for 4 years, was on the Bucks for a minute. He was on with us earlier this week. He has the school squat record. He squatted 770. He repped 605 pounds 9 times in an epic.
Go listen to that.
In an epic video set to "Nuck If You Buck." Which is the perfect song to lift to. So I highly recommend doing that. Check us out on social. We have a great cut up of the Nuck If You Buck video out on our Instagram page. So that is enough me plugging my stuff. Let's talk dogs. Let's talk doors.
Yes, but before we get to that, we are presented by Betonline.ag, your number one source for all your sports wagering needs. The NHL just kicked off, so whether you want to do that, NBA, NHL, like I just said, MLB playoffs, college football, NFL. If you want it, they got it. Live game props, parlays, futures, whatever you want, they've got it, including a live casino as well. So you can play any casino game you want. I know, Matt, you're a big fan of Caribbean stud poker. So,
I mean, I'm a stud if I'm in the Caribbean or if I'm anywhere in the world, baby.
And playing poker all the same. So the dog father, I love it, man. It's
an appropriate shirt for where we are today.
It's a great shirt for a lot of reasons, but one of Snoop's more underrated albums, The Dog Father.
That has 2 G's. Unfortunately, I should get that and wear them on consecutive days, and then I need a Dog Father, a DAWG one, or maybe you need one actually.
I need that one. That might be a project for Laura.
That might be a project. No, don't tell your wife. There's only so much Georgia gear I can get you every year for your birthday and Christmas.
Okay.
So, and your wife. Tell her. For those who are listening who are not aware, Coach's wife is the best gift giver in the history of gift givers. It is impossible to outgift her. So she already has plenty of ideas. Give me those ideas that she doesn't have.
Okay. Sold. Okay, so to finish that off, just go to betonline.ag, enter the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Betonline.ag, it's where the game starts. Well, in order to look forward, we need to look backwards a little bit just to kind of see how Georgia got to this point. Georgia's 31.5-point favorites in this game. Not surprised. They haven't really covered much all year. I think they've covered the spread once, and that was last week. But they finally, what I noticed, Matt, watching the game against Kentucky is they finally took the reins off the offense a little bit. I think when you saw Mike Bobo finally just say, "Oh, screw it, we're going to cut it loose and just get this thing going early," you saw really, really good results. Carson Beck was dialed in. He was dealing. And it was, from start to finish, it was very, very clean. You get some guys back from injury. Kendall Milton was back, full participating. Lad McConkey was, I mean, I know he's been back for a couple of weeks now, but like he's not like fully back now, which is good. And you get some pieces back in the mix, and you get kind of that rhythm that you had during camp. So, what about Georgia's performance up to this point? Do you want to ask me about? Do you want to get more clarification? Like, what do you want to know from the Vanderbilt perspective? Like, what to expect coming into this matchup? You are muted, my man. I'm sure you're throwing some really good points out there.
I actually just wanted to ask you about last week's game more than anything else, right?
All right.
Because
let's hit it.
What impressed, like Georgia's offense looked great for the first time this year. Mm-hmm. What really impressed me was Georgia's defense, and their run defense specifically against Ray Davis and a really good offensive line that Kentucky has. Mm-hmm. Right, Ray Davis, after transferring from Vanderbilt,
there you go,
Kentucky.
There's your guy
to play with Devin Leary. The two of them talked openly about how like they connected when they both entered the portal and wanted to play together. They've both been awesome for Kentucky. Georgia completely shut them down. Yeah. And like Ray Davis has been one of the more impressive players in the country through the first 6 weeks of the season at the running back position. And in shutting him down, it was super impressive to me to watch. Now, obviously, like, yes, Georgia has like all the talent in the world on the defensive side of the ball, and they prove that every week. But last week was even better because Kentucky also has a really good offensive line, like a really, really good offensive line. Mm-hmm. And some of Georgia's, front seven players a little bit younger may not know how to deal with that bigger, thicker, nastier offensive line. Definitely the toughest one they've played all season. So I was really impressed with that.
Well, I mean, it was a legitimate concern too, coming in off an Auburn game in which you saw Jarquez Hunter and Peyton Thorne kind of run very, very well, very clean with Georgia on the road. I mean, the biggest concern that I've had with this Georgia front seven was not the linebacking core. It was just the fact that there was no superstar in the middle to kind of hold things down to where these backers can really kind of play B to C to D gap, right? And they've been spoiled by having a Jalen Carter and a Jordan Davis and for a year or two, those two together, and being able to seal the interior to where those linebackers can play very free. Now they can't, and they've kind of struggled adjusting to that. And you saw that in the option game, 2 weeks ago against Auburn, where they were able to find some success running the ball against this Georgia defense. And Kentucky found no such luck. I mean, some guys stepped up. Linebackers played very, very well, extremely well. And Kentucky just couldn't mount much of anything. And when they did, it was usually there was usually a stupid penalty or something on the heels of a big play that kind of negated it for them. Yeah.
And so, still, I mean, definitely the best performance we've seen we've seen out of them, right? And so, like, I think going into this week, my question as Vandy on the offensive side of the ball, like they have one stud, and it's wide receiver Will Shepherd, and they have to work to get him advantageous matchups, and I think that for them is going to be moving him in the slot a lot. I mean, he's been operating out of all, whether he's playing X or Z or in the slot or whatever, he's all over the field. But I think this week more than ever, they have to get him operating out of the slot because I think it's the only way he's going to be able to get enough free releases to really get out and get, into open space quickly enough before that Georgia pass rush beats up on a Vanderbilt offensive line that has struggled this year, that has really struggled this year. And when it necessarily shouldn't have, because all the guys that they've returned, all their starters have returned. And so, and this team went 5-7 last year down the stretch, had big wins against Kentucky, against Florida, and they haven't taken that next step. And I think that's been really disappointing.
Why have they gone backwards? Do you know?
I think
what's the biggest thing?
I think the biggest thing is that they lost Ray Davis, and we see how special Ray Davis is as a player. And I think that he was covering up for a lot of deficiencies. And and so for me, it's a loss of a truly special back who cleaned a lot of that up, and defenses had to respect the run game more because the run game now is just pathetic, and they know all they're trying to do is get the ball to Will Shepherd, get the ball to Quincy Skinner, who's definitely the number 2 receiver. Will Shepherd's an all SEC talent at receiver. He is an absolute beast, and he is their offense. And so they went back to Ken Seals a couple weeks ago as the starting quarterback again. They're doing a timeshare with him and AJ Swan, and it's not working, man. I personally, I just wanted to give Swan the entire year. I thought Swan showed enough that he really could be the guy for this year and moving forward. And Seals has come in and been meh. I mean, it's meh. And so without an offensive identity, I mean, Patrick Smith, who sort of was the number 2 back behind Davis last year, should have started the year as the starter, but has already lost out to a freshman in Cedric Alexander, who is, getting more carries than him now. And so it's pretty rough there on the offensive side of the ball for the Doors. And they're so light up front on the defense that it's, not going great out there, Corey. I mean,
one of the things I see, Matt, is the turnovers, man. They've thrown the most interceptions with 8. They've lost the most fumbles, 5. It's bad. They have set opponents up with short fields, and a lot of that's probably due to changing quarterbacks, like you just said. It's brutal, man.
It's really bad. I mean, in their last 2 games, like, I know the last 2 games against SEC, last 2 games have all been SEC games. They lost by 17 to Kentucky, they lost by 17 to Missouri, and they lost by 24 to Florida. And we know that those are 3 mid-tier SEC East teams, right? You'd say, after Georgia being tier 1, and then Tennessee right after that, then you've got that Kentucky, Missouri, Florida sort of. I'd say those 3 teams are definitely the next ones in line. And, considering how much I struggled against those teams, it's going to be bad, man. I mean, there's a reason I'm selling my tickets for this weekend's game here in Nashville, because I don't want to see that like with my own eyes. If it's on the TV screen, it's like it's not really happening. But when it's there, and like we got upgraded this year at no cost because there's so much construction going on in that stadium, and here we are still shelling out money. So we are effectively in the 4th row. And so when it's bad, you get to really see it up close, and it's not fun. It's not fun.
Well, do you want to go just for fun?
But that's a problem. It's not fun. It's really not fun because we're right behind the Vanderbilt bench, and those guys it's sad, man. I feel for those guys. Like, I've interviewed some of those guys, and you want the best for them. And this year has not been the best. And it's been a step back this year under Clark Lee, which is surprising because last year, like, they finished so strong. They finished so strong last year. And there was hope, like, okay, can build on that. Can make a bowl game this year. And then losing to Wake Forest is one thing, even though this is not a great Wake Forest team. That loss to UNLV, though, was
pitiful.
And that's the turning point in this season. Like, they win that, they come back, they're 3-1. You can regroup a little bit. Okay, SEC season's in front of us. Yeah, we lost the Wake Forest game, but we can compete with your South Carolinas and Floridas and Auburns of the world who are on the schedule.
Mm-hmm. Now that just seems like a distant.
I mean, that's a memory.
Thing.
That's a distant memory. And they're 2-5. They are not going bowling because they got Georgia, Ole Miss, Auburn, South Carolina, and Tennessee left on schedule. Like,
that's not good.
They could, like, there's a world that they like maybe beat South Carolina because South Carolina just loves to shoot themselves in the foot and do really stupid stuff. But
South Carolina owns them in this matchup.
I know. And so
for some reason, it doesn't matter how bad South Carolina is, they own Like that's one of those teams that Vanderbilt, it just doesn't matter how good Vanderbilt is and how bad South Carolina is. It just seems to be one of those matchups they always seem to lose.
So they might finish 2-10, losing their last 10 games. And that's bad. That's really, really bad for a team that we expected a little bit more out of. And on the recruiting side, it's not going great either.
They're losing. Commits are going to jump off the bandwagon. I'm not going to say any names, but I know of one commit that's already thinking UCLA.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll tell you in a little bit, but I'm already hearing some rumblings of recruits just jumping ship like crazy. Yeah. And so it's I don't know what the answer is for Vanderbilt, but the question was asked 30, I think the spread's up to 32.5 now. It's 31, 32, somewhere in that ballpark. For me, if Vanderbilt's going to cover that spread, which I've been tempted. I said earlier this year, I'm never picking Georgia with a double-digit spread because they won't cover it. This is a game they always cover, and I think they would have to turn it over a whole bunch, honestly, to let Vanderbilt cover this thing.
Especially Georgia heading into a bye. It's not like they're looking ahead to somebody, right?
They're looking ahead to the bye.
They're looking ahead to the bye, right? And so, man. 32.5, that's a lot of points. I mean, that's a lot of points.
Yeah, it is.
And
I'm going to crush the over on that.
Yeah, Georgia's going to run for like 350 yards because I don't think Carson, I expect at least 2 Brock Bowers reverses, at least 2. Mm-hmm. I'm expecting
there's going to be a Brock Bowers jet sweep that's going to be taken to the house in this one if they don't call it back for holding.
But I mean, we're going to see. I think, like you said, with Kendall Milton back, I think we're going to see a lot of Kendall Milton. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to see just are you a running back who plays for Georgia? You're going to get like 8 carries and end up with 77 yards.
Cash Daniel.
I mean, are you the 7th string walk on? Sure. Why not? It would not surprise me in the least. I did see Cash though take
Cash Jones, not Daniel. What am I saying Cash Daniel for?
I don't know. Cash Jones. I did see him. I saw him score his touchdown a couple weeks ago when he did that.
Against UAB. He had a toe tapper against UAB. That was pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, I just think, again, this matchup, I mean, we could go ad nauseum about matchups and things like that, but that's not going to be one of those things because it's going to be a struggle because Will Shepherd, by playing in the slot, he might avoid Kamari Lassiter, but he's going to get Javon Bullard or Malachi Starks. Or he may get an occasional big play because Georgia still has some issues communicating on the back end in the secondary when it comes to certain coverages. And I think it speaks to more of how complicated some of the coverages can get for Georgia and their ability to communicate those in real time. So that might be an avenue for a few big plays, but other than that, man, I don't know, man. This is,
it's not a good game, and unfortunately, for the last 10 years now, since James Franklin left, you don't get a lot of good games with Vanderbilt football, and it's a systemic issue, and it starts it starts above Clark-Lee. It starts with the athletic department and. Mm-hmm. Candace Story-Lee and the AD before her, and their battles with the larger administration at the school, and that they don't want to invest in football, and they think that investing in football is antithetical to the goals of the institution. And if that's true, if you think that being an SEC member in a lot of ways means that you got to put some money into football. Because
otherwise you're going to get
the product. Well, it's a bad look. And if Vanderbilt wants to be an academic institution, only care about academics, and they really need to assess what is the purpose of this football program? Because it's not cheap to run a Division I football team,
much less an SEC team. Yeah,
exactly. And you have to wonder now, when you've had a decade of just complete underwhelming performances, not a ton of true standout players because they don't recruit, because they don't spend to recruit. What's the purpose of having this program if you're not going to use it as an avenue to further the mission of your university, because at the end of the day, colleges have football programs to raise money for their university. I would imagine at this point, Vanderbilt's football team is a net negative because they're getting the TV money, but like those games are awful to attend, man. There's like 20% in an SEC game. You're lucky to get 20% Vandy fans. Like it's bad. It's bad. And I love going and I love the traditions, but like even like the pregame stuff, like I'm going to go a little inside baseball here for a second. So pregame, there's something called the Star Walk, right? It used to be, they go out of McGugin, which is the athletics building, and they carry like this big gold anchor, and they all march. The marching band is there, and they all like march in the stadium. It's called the Anchor Walk. And now they've set it up so you have to go with all this construction there. You have to go around to a different place. You don't see them enter the stadium. The marching band isn't there, and you can't bring beer to it anymore. And so it is just, one of the few like fun pregame traditions has now been scrapped away as well through all of this. And it doesn't even make sense. And so yes, I know it's probably due to the construction, but even the construction's an embarrassment, man. Like Georgia fans going to this game who are listening, like enjoy your time in Nashville. I hope you have a wonderful time. You'll see the Dogs win by 1,000,000 points, but you're going to see a scoreboard hanging from a crane. And sometimes that scoreboard, like the large central middle panel, is just going to flicker because it doesn't quite work right there. And the net, the goalpost right in front of that, there's no net. We saw a cameraman get hit by an extra point one time since we've been there. And if your tickets are on one side of the state, you can't go from one side of the stadium to the other. You can't even walk the full way around. You're either on one half or you're on the other half. It's such a mess. It's such a cluster. And it is not a fun football going experience right now. It's really not. And that's really frustrating as someone who, we buy season tickets every year. We're giving money to the athletic program. Even we have basketball season tickets too. At least those games are fun to go to. At least Vandy basketball games, like there's still something, even though like the product on the floor, not great. Like it's a tick better than the football team. It's still not great, but at least the in-game atmosphere is still fun. At least, Memorial Stadium still has, Memorial Fieldhouse still has like some like juice there. There's no juice in that football stadium. And it's tough, man. It's really tough.
Yeah, it's a tough look, man. But hopefully for Vanderbilt's sake, because I think everybody wants Vanderbilt to do well. Yeah. Because it's good for the league. But they've got a long way to go. Such a long way to go. You want to talk some numbers though?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first set of stats is most 50-plus point games because, well, let's face it, Georgia has beaten Vanderbilt by 50-plus in the last two meetings. And Vanderbilt has not scored a point on Georgia since the 2018 matchup. So it's been three straight contests with a no game in 2020 due to COVID. But Kirby Smart has 13 50-plus point games in 102 attempts. What do you think about that? Mark Richt had 18 in 196 games.
I mean, I guess that doesn't surprise me too much. It's not like Georgia they're not Ohio State. They're not like Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, right? They're not
running up for no reason.
And even in Alabama's heyday, like when they were Alabama, like they would score 50 once a year, right? Because in a lot of ways, Georgia's followed that mold. And when they're dominating games, it's dominating with their defense and a physical running game that's going to shorten the game. And they're going to win 45-3.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just going to take the foot off because they have respect. I get that. All right. Carson Beck last week had a really, really nice game. He set career highs in attempts with 28 yards, 389, and touchdowns with 4. That ranks 4th all time under Kirby Smart as far as most passing yards in a game with 389. Who do you think is in the top 3 under Kirby Smart with passing yards? In which game do you think?
Oh, under Kirby. Okay, so
just Georgia quarterbacks just under Kirby most yards. So 390 and above.
I'm gonna go with who was our friend, my wife's favorite quarterback from that quarterback series.
Jake Fromm.
That's correct.
He only has one appearance, and it's way down. 2017 against Missouri with 326 yards.
Okay, well, I mean, let's go with Stetson.
Okay, Stetson, his best game, he's on here several times. His best game was the 2022 college football semifinal against Ohio State with 398 yards. That is second by 4 yards.
Wasn't there like a JT Daniels game? Was there like one JT Daniels game?
There was 2 JT Daniels games, both of them in the top 4.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
The Peach Bowl against Desmond Ridder in Cincinnati, 392. And 2020 against Mississippi State, he threw for 401. I think it was his debut.
All right. Yeah. All right. And so I'm missing, how many am I missing now? 1?
No, that's it. I mean, then I'll run down the list. So JT Daniels against Mississippi State, 401. Stetson Bennett, JT Daniels again. Then Carson Beck last week. Stetson Bennett against Oregon, 368. Jacob Eason against Vanderbilt in a loss, 346.
Jacob Eason.
Yeah. Stetson Bennett in the 21 SEC championship against Alabama, 340 in a loss. Georgia's last loss, actually. Carson Beck a few weeks ago, 328 against UAB. Jake Fromm, as I just mentioned, and Stetson Bennett, 22 against Florida with 316. 2022 Florida game.
All right.
Yeah. Most consecutive 100 receiving yard games by Georgia Bulldogs since 2000. So you have Fred Gibson is number 1, Terrence Edwards and Brock Bowers are tied for the second spot. So Fred Gibson.
There's a name that I have not heard in a very long time. He was there.
Him and I were there at the same time. Fred Gibson was really fun to watch. Played basketball too, actually. Brock Bowers, his stats through the first 6 games, 37 catches for 544 yards with 4 touchdowns. He's had 3 100-yard games, and he has had 1 touchdown on the ground, so 5 total touchdowns. His stats all of last year, he had 22 catches, 378. Actually, first 6. So compared to last year, or compared to his all 3 years, he had 20 catches, 22 catches, and then 37 catches in 23. So looks like Bobo's targeting him a lot more. That tells you a little bit more about scheme-wise and the injury situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I've seen Oscar Delp get a little bit more run too. Last couple of times I've turned
lots of 12 personnel, which is great.
Yeah,
which is great. So
good player, real good player.
Noshawn Moreno's being inducted into the SEC Legends honor, whatever that is.
One of your favorite tailbacks of all time.
I love Noshawn, dude. He was great. He took over the Arizona State game. I remember out there in Tempe. That was the first time you really. Like the world really saw just how well Georgia travels when all of a sudden they took over Tempe, Arizona in 2008. But do you want to make a few picks?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So this is going to be truly random selections here. Our lines presented by Betonline.ag. I built and almost hit a parlay based on this segment from last week. Last week, I took the over on the Georgia-Kentucky game. I took Bama and LSU on a money line, and I took my random pick was Wazoo on a money line.
Oh,
I hit 3 of the 4.
You did not hit Wazoo.
Did not hit Wazoo.
No, you did not.
Damn it. So, Matt, I'm going to go through the lines here on BetOnline.ag, and we're going to pick a few games here, and then we're going to get out of here because I think both you and I are going to turn into pumpkins here pretty soon. So here we go. Interesting matchup, 11 a.m. kick. Syracuse at Florida State. Syracuse is 17.5-point underdogs. The over is 54.5. What do you think?
I like the over in this one. More than anything else, I like the over.
Yeah, I'm taking the over too. I'm not touching this spread. But but I really, really, really like the over. And there's no line for the money line here, but I'm gonna take the over 54.5. Syracuse versus FSU. I'm writing these down if you're wondering why I'm talking so weird. All right, Indiana at Michigan. This is an interesting one. 33-point spread. Michigan's favorite at home in the Big House. The over/under set at 45.5. Is this another over/under game, or are you going to touch the spread, or what do you think?
It's another over game because Indiana is trash, but I don't know how much. But I don't know, man. Actually, this is a tough one. No, give me Michigan minus the points. Indiana's really, really, really bad.
Yeah,
Indiana's really bad. So yeah, give me Michigan minus the points, even though on that huge line.
Okay, that's a bold strategy there, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. Let's see how it works out. Okay, so one of the games you were looking at for let's go through some of our illegal motion games. Oregon at Washington. I mean,
I like Washington here.
I do too. I think when you ask me on illegal motion about the speed bump thing, whereas I think Oregon is probably more talented, I think in the end, Washington's going to pull it out, A, because it's at home, B, the conditions I think are going to be something that are difficult for Bo Nix to handle. And the point spread is not big enough to where I think it's going to be a factor. I would probably take a 2-game parlay here. Washington on a money line with the under. The under set at 66.5.
Yeah, just because of the weather. I don't blame you.
Yeah. So I'm going to take Washington money line and the under at 66.5. That's a lot of points.
I just give me Washington on the money line.
Yeah, for sure. What about your game? 9.5 points with Iowa. For me, I take Iowa to cover. I know on the show I went with Iowa. A lot of that was because I think, if you're looking at point spreads, I think they're going to cover this just because it's going to be a slow, sloppy defense, special teams fest where I think Iowa has the advantage. And I think if, at the very least, worst case scenario, they cover it if they don't win it outright.
Yeah, I as a rule of thumb, I never wager on my teams because I am way too emotionally invested one way or the other. And so
it's probably good.
I'm taking the under, whatever the under is. Like it's going under. It's going under. It's going to be nasty conditions. Like it's going to be what? Can you pull up the over under for me, Coach, on this one? Because
the over under is 33.5.
Yeah, I still think it's going under, man, because it's going to be 40s, rainy, 30 miles an hour winds. Like between a quarterback at Iowa, Deacon Hill, who was the third stringer at Wisconsin last year and has no mobility and didn't even complete a pass for a wide receiver last week. And then Tanner Mordecai, who averaged less than 5 yards per attempt last week against Rutgers, and it's just like maybe averaging 6 yards per attempt this year. And with one basically healthy running back, it's going to be bad, man. It's going to be bad. It's going to be ugly football. Like Wisconsin, like 17-12 in some like obscure early scored game.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you there. Let's go 2 more, and then we're going to get out of here. We're going to USC, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is 3-point favorites in South Bend. Over under set at 60.5.
Notre Dame and the under. Notre Dame and the under on this one.
Yeah, I would take Notre Dame in the under as well. I think that's a really, really good choice. I think they're going to win this thing outright. Mm-hmm. I would be more tempted to take Notre Dame on a money line with the under, just to secure a win because I don't know. I just don't know how this game's going to go. So I'd be a safe bet would be a two-legger there to get your bang for your buck.
Love it.
And then last and certainly not least, because there's a lot of sneaky good games to bet on here and some sneaky good games to watch. The games that you wouldn't think would be fun to watch, like Missouri, Kentucky, I think is going to be interesting. Auburn, LSU is going to be interesting. There's a lot of Arizona, Washington State's going to be interesting. But let's go Miami, North Carolina. Miami is 3-point road dogs in Chapel Hill. The over-under set at 57.
Oh, UNC in the over.
Yeah.
UNC in the over. I mean, it's going to be, you could put the over-under in the 70s. I'm happy with it. Like, I'm still taking the over. I think it's good. Big points all around.
So 57 is a safe number for the over.
Yep.
All right. Well, looks like you and I agree on a lot of these picks, honestly.
What else is new?
Especially when we're taking unders and over and unders. I think those are fairly simple to bet on. So, but Matt, man, a pleasure as always. No matter what the content is, no matter what the game is, it's always fun having you on board. With the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast, always like having you on as a guest host, dude.
Always happy to pinch hit.
There you go, man. Well, you're a great pinch hitter, and you're absolutely killing it.
And I feel like our Braves could use a pinch hitter right now.
They absolutely could. It's brutal.
Not great. It's not great. Not
great at all. Not good at all. I'm fearful of checking the score. So, with that, we're gonna let you go. But if you're traveling to Nashville, hope you have a great time. I'm sure the game will be just a minor blip on your radar. There's a lot to do around here in the Music City. But again, thank you, Matt, for joining us here on the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast presented by Betonline.ag. We hope to see you back soon. But until then, as always, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Do you believe?